Hello, welcome back to PIHS Anchor. I'm Anchor staff Xavier Peng. What you're listening to is a new podcast of The Anchor hosted by me and
Michaela White.
Starting today, me and Michaela will talk about movies, music, art, and pop culture on the podcast.
In honor of March being Women's History Month, this and the next couple of podcasts will discuss works that's surrounded by the theme of women empowerment.
We have interviewed some PIHS students. Let's hear what they have to say.
Erin Kelly.
Okay, so in the name of International Women's Day, would you mind sharing PIHS Anchor a movie about women empowerment that you would recommend?
I think the movie Mulan would actually be one that I would really recommend. I think like a lot of other Disney movies are about like a woman fighting like a man and everything,
Yeah.
but Mulan is more of like a woman like trying to find her place in the world, and she's trying to like overcome all these battles without having to need someone else to complete her.
Okay, right. So, do you have like a scene in the movie that you think that most showcase like female empowerment?
In that movie?
Yes.
Yeah, so I think one where she's just like, the one where she's like kind of like going like into the battle with like, and it's like she's like literally dressed as like a man trying to get into the battle.
Yeah.
I think that scene is just like the coolest because it's like she will do anything she can to like to be able to fight in what she's doing.
Okay, yeah, that's very cool. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, it's Michaela, and I'm here with
Julie Bartley.
and Emma Deeves. So I'm just gonna ask each of you for one movie recommendation that you think is empowering to females. We're thinking.
Thelma and Louise.
And why would somebody want to watch this?
It's a classic movie, and it's about two women who take matters into their own hands. I think they end up like killing a guy or something, not to spoil it, but they end up just like kind of running away from their lives together and being really tough, empowering women.
Thank you.
Hello, my name is Kaylee Swanson. A film I would recommend that truly embodies female empowerment is Moxie. This film is based on the book Moxie, written by author Jennifer Matu, which I actually recently discovered was based on a book. I will definitely be reading this. When I first watched Moxie, I remember just thinking how incredibly relatable and moving many of the topics were, and the actions toward these topics toward me. Moxie follows a 16-year-old female high school student who creates a feminist zine after witnessing the continual things such as sexual harassment, assault, bullying, and continuous bugging to her fellow female students. The zine, called Moxie, gains support and empowers other young women throughout the school who have dealt with the harshness of misogyny. In my opinion, the film is really wonderful in its representation, giving light to topics such as the continuous hardships faced by women, LGBTQ plus representation, many aspects of diversity, the obstacles teenagers face, for example, friendship struggles, and many more. Overall, Moxie would be a great movie to watch if you need the powerful spark of female empowerment in your life.
That's some great answers.
Absolutely. Like, I'm actually astonished with the knowledge that these girls had.
Yeah, so why don't we start talking about some of your answers. What do you think of Mulan?
I think Mulan is just great in the sense that to find equality, Mulan had to become the man. Like, she was the man. And it makes me think of that Taylor Swift song, especially the line, always running as fast as I can, wondering if I'd be faster if I were a man.
Yeah, totally. I think it's true that the movie kind of reversed the power dynamic of female and male by, like physically turning Mulan, put her in disguise, just come into this camp or, like a military that's usually considered and associated with male. And Mulan as a female character got in, and her skills got her praise for generals and all that. So it's another like representation of female empowerment, like in a physical sense, like because women are usually considered like physically weaker than men, but Mulan it's like the reverse of that myth.
Right, and I think that not only did she become an equal, but she was among the strongest, which just really gave her this power that every woman should feel and every woman should have.
Exactly. Okay, so and we also have Thelma and Louise. So you haven't seen the film, have you?
No, I haven't, and I honestly have never even heard of it. Like, that makes me feel very uneducated.
It's okay. Yeah, Thelma and Louise is probably one of the first authentic female empowerment movie. I think it's probably the first ever female, like, oh, how do you say that? Like, road trip movie? Yeah, something like that. Like, just like mainly is them traveling in a car. Yeah. But I think one of the most important thing in it is the message of sexual assault and in women and how they respond to it. Because like women are usually considered to be docile, to be tolerant. And back in the day, back in when Thelma and Louise was released, it was not like people haven't had like that strong of like feminist mindset. So it is truly groundbreaking that they set a character who has been through sexual assault, and like the person who has personally gone through sexual assault, try to be stereotypically docile, just like letting things go, but another female character decides to do something for her. It is just the girls help girls moment, and also it's just a presentation that women doesn't need to always tolerate things, especially when it comes to serious stuffs like sexual assault. And like quite literally, she killed the assaultant. So yeah, that was like a moment in the cinematic world that's just like so influential to a lot of female empowerment related movies, because it just embraced females' violence and anger, which is something that men honestly don't really like to see, but it is in the movie and it's iconic and it has won a lot of awards. And to be honest, if you like ask your mothers or your aunts like what's their favorite female empowerment movie, it's probably going to be Thelma and Louise, because it's just so iconic. Yeah, and I highly recommend you to see it.
I definitely am gonna go watch it now, just because you said the women help women movement, and I think that we all need to be more like girls and not so competitive with each other. So that's such a good message.
Oh yeah, totally, like 100%. Okay, so these are the answers from PIHS students, and also there's Moxie that Kaylee talked about. Moxie is, it's basically the modern version of Mean Girls in a way, to be honest, because but with like a lot of as Kaylee said, like representation for LGBTQ plus community, and also like the radical side of female to fight against bullying and sexism in high school. So yeah, and honestly, the plot of the film is quite obvious, and it's pretty much explained by Kaylee. Yeah, she's done a good job. The one thing that I think it's worth to point out is that in the movie there is this character that serves as a male ally. So I think it's a good thing for male audience who watches this film to know that they could be this ally. Like they don't have to have that men like group mentality to just objectify women and always like do stuff like slut shame and all that. Like they don't have to be that person. They could be an ally to women and respect them as they should be. So it is a really interesting character to be put in this movie, because I think it's a great example for high school boys to do better, to be honest. And there are also some of other films that we've watched about like female empowerment. Okay, so I personally would recommend lots of movies. Like lately, I've been watching like quite literally last week, Women Talking, who's done a great job in Oscar, and also like Promising Young Women. But I think I'll pick a movie that we both watch, like Where the Crawdads Sing. Yeah, how do you think of it?
Where the Crawdads Sing. Let's talk about it. I have watched this movie so many times. The first time I watched it, I was like, okay, rewind it, I'm watching it again. Because I have never truly watched something so empowering in my entire life. You want to talk about beating the odds? Watch Where the Crawdads Sing. I mean, this girl grew up watching her mother get beat by her dad, watching her siblings get beat, and then constantly abandoned by every single person she ever met. She had to deal with so much growing up, and then she grows up and it just continues. She keeps taking hits, she wins, and it all gets torn apart, and then finally at the end, the very, very end, we get to watch after she grows old and we learn the truth about all the things that she did, and just it makes you want to clap your hands and say, yes, girl.
Yeah, it is just empowering. Like the empowering is just the only adjective that I could use to describe that, because like you can tell that because of her traumatic past, especially when it comes to the father being the hitter, and I actually wrote like a full-on film critic for this film based on the knowledge of ecofeminism, because like nature is a big part of this movie, and ecofeminism is like it's a concept that's not really known by lots of people, but I'm not going to go in depth on that here. I'm just gonna talk about like her relationship with her father. So usually when a character is like, because it's not new that fathers like in cinematic words are usually like hit people, like they do like, or like they're like an alcoholic, or they use drugs and all that, right? But usually like their sons or daughters will like forgive them for doing that, like forgive and just move on. Like that is just so old. It's an old tale of that. But Kaya, like she didn't do that. Like she didn't like forgive her dad. She learned from the experience of coping with her dad, and she like truly just grows into someone who's like, to a female that's truly independent, because like she's like merged with nature. And when you think of nature and human society, we all know that we should revere nature more. And Kaya is like growing in nature. Basically, nature is her mother in a sense, and she learned from nature and how animals works. There's a part of the film about how I think like an animal, like a female would eat the male in order to survive. I think that's a great
Metaphor.
Yeah. It just parallels of how she acts in the movie, and she's honestly truly independent. Like she's independent in the sense that she doesn't need a man to survive. She can go hunting herself. Like she could make her own food, and she could use her knowledge of drawing to earn a living. She doesn't really need a man. But the fact that she eventually ends up with a man is honestly because that first maybe it's because like she's lacking of that male like kind of love because of her father.
She's lacking affection in all aspects of her life. I mean, she's alone, completely alone in the middle of the woods.
Yeah, that could be one reason. The second is that the man that she ends up with is like truly respectful for her and truly devoted in crediting her for her own works and her own knowledge and skills. So yeah, again, it's a good example of how guys should act, to be honest. And yeah, like there's a lot to talk about in this movie, to be honest. Do you want to add something?
I just want to add the theme of perseverance is very extreme in this novel and in this movie.
Have you read the book?
I have read the book.
I haven't read it. Yeah.
And I think that that's something that not only women can learn from, but everybody can learn from, to be completely honest. We like to make minor inconveniences major inconveniences, and that mentality is completely horrible for us. I mean, you cannot take time to victimize yourself in dire situations. You have to accept what has happened, and you have to take it in stride and move on. And I think that in this movie, I've never seen a character do that so much. And it was just truly inspiring, and I've tried to like incorporate the themes into my own life and try to learn from her.
Yeah, that's amazing. Okay, we've talked about some movies that has to do with female empowerment and feminism in Women's History Month, and we will be covering books and music about female empowerment in the next few weeks. So stay tuned. Again, it's Xavier Peng
Michaela White.
and thank you for listening to PIH's new anchor. And see you next time.